It's Wolf, and I have another real-life actual product review. Oh man, this box is big. This is the Thrustmaster T80 racing wheel for PS4 and also PS3 and PC. I haven't tested it on PC, but I have tested it on PS4 and PS3, as you guys are going to see later in the video. So, it's a racing wheel. It's pretty self-explanatory, honestly. I don't really know exactly what all to say about this, but yeah, so I'll show you guys the box first here. So, okay. So the reason I bought this was because towards the beginning of all this stuff with coronavirus, when my college sent me home because they were getting worried about coronavirus and everything, I thought to myself, man, I'm going to need to find stuff to do while I'm stuck at home. So right before stuff really started shutting down, I went out and I bought this, which one of the things that's convenient about this is even though it's on the kind of cheaper end of racing wheels, it's like really easily available. So I bought this right at a local Walmart, and I've seen these for sale at a bunch of Walmarts and stuff. So that's one of the nice things about this is that you don't need to like order it online or anything. You probably find it at a local store. That being said though, like I said, it is on the sort of cheaper end of racing wheels, but that was also one of the things that I wanted because even though I like racing games, I don't spend a ton of time playing racing games. So it's nice to have a wheel, but not have to have invested a ton of money into it. As you guys can see here, I'll show you guys the actual wheel and stuff, but on the box it tells you a little bit about it. It tells you stuff that I'm going to show later in the video anyway. Pretty much the other sides say about the same info. The one thing that I really wanted to point out on the side of the box here was the bungee cord system thing. Now I will say, not to start this review kind of off on a negative note, but the bungee cord thing that it says it uses is one of the negatives that kind of comes with this wheel, is that whenever you have any sort of elastic system in really anything, eventually it will wear down, like old cassette players, anything really that uses any sort of elastic wire or whatever. Eventually those just don't really work as well anymore. I will say this one, even though I've been using it for a couple months now, like for like long periods of time straight, it still seems to work pretty much as well as the day I bought it. So there's, like I said, there's really not that much to show on the box. The box was better put together than I have it re-put together back here. So first I'm going to take out the pedals because it has pedals alongside the wheel. So first I'm going to take out the pedals, show you guys the pedals, and then show you guys the wheel. Alright, so I wanted to start off with showing you guys the pedals because they're pretty straightforward and there's not like buttons on them or anything. It's just two pedals. So yeah, I mean, they are exactly what you would think they are. One of the nice things about them is that they have like some kind of grippers on the bottom. I don't know how well you guys can actually see that on the camera, but they have some like grip stuff on the bottom so they don't slide on like hard surfaces too much. I will say I have carpet in my room, so that doesn't really help the most with carpet. They do tend to stay pretty well put even on carpet, but they do slip around a little bit more than if you were on like some sort of hard surface like wood, like my desk here. Sometimes I think the pedals, they're good, but I will say the one negative about them is that they do feel a little bit hard to press at times, especially given that, like, as you guys can see, when I'm hitting the brake pedal here, it's lifting up. So I mean, they do what they need to do. They are pedals, but I kind of wish like the tension was a little lower in them and they were easier to press. Also, one of the other things about kind of really any racing wheel will run into this issue though, is that they're coming up from the bottom, which in most real cars the pedals come down from the top. So that kind of sucks because there's not really any other way for them to do that, but it feels a little bit weird compared to a real car because of the position of the pedals. The only other real interesting things to say about this are that it connects using this, which looks like a phone cord pretty much, connects to the racing wheel using this, and then the racing wheel plugs into the PlayStation. And there are screws on both of these pedals, so I believe if you wanted to like flip it upside down and use it the other way you could, or like swap them out or whatever if you wanted to, you could. However, I managed to strip the screw in this one. I was going to do that because this one felt better on my foot than this one, so I was going to swap them and like put this one upside down also, so that way it would like fit my foot better. But then I stripped the screw on this one, so I can't really very well do that now. But I mean, they do feel pretty much fine on your feet, and if I had like a hardwood surface like my desk, like I said, to actually use them on, I think they would work a lot better. So that is one thing to consider. Overall, though, they are pretty good pedals, and they when you guys see the gameplay later, you can probably tell they work pretty well with like sensitivity. Like they don't jump around that. Like you can press them lightly, and the game will register it lightly. So that's one of the nice things about these. They do seem pretty accurate with the like presses and stuff. Anyway, on to the wheel. Okay, now one quick thing that I just want to show you guys before I actually like show you guys the wheel is the mechanism that it uses to clamp to things, because it is actually a real clamp. So I'll show you guys like the rest of the features on the wheel, but first I wanted to show this because I'm going to try to clamp it to my desk here and then show it to you guys while it is in place. But yep, it uses sort of a clamp mechanism which works really well. The only other racing wheel I own is actually like a PS2 one, and that used suction cups, which really sucked. So to have a clamp on this one is very nice. It does seem to work pretty well. I will say if you have like a really thick desk or other surface like a table or whatever that you're trying to put it on, it might not fit super well. Like I usually use this hooked up to a TV tray. I'll clamp this to the TV tray and then have the pedals on the bottom, and it works, but sometimes it's a pain to get on there because the TV tray has this like thick part that I have to like put the clamp over in order to clamp it on, and it does work, but it's like kind of iffy. And also these are originally separate when you first get it, and then you put this in, and then you could actually take the bottom part all the way off too. Don't really know why you would need to do that once it's on, but you can. So it uses a clamp, like I said, which is nice compared to suction cups and other attachment forms. So as you guys can see, I have it clamped to my desk here, and because of that clamp, it really does not move. If you have it clamped onto an appropriately thick enough surface where, you know, the actual desk or table or whatever you have it clamped to doesn't really move, then the wheel probably won't move either, because like I said, it is very well clamped down. Actually, I'm kind of surprised with just how well this clamp works, especially because, like I said, compared to the only other racing wheel I own for the PS2 that used suction cups, this is like incredible. As for the wheel itself, as you guys can see on the front here, we have pretty much all the buttons. This sadly does nothing. The honking, oh my goodness, the horn, I can't believe it. Wow. Anyway, so R2 and R3 are up here, L2, L3 are over here. You have your symbol buttons over here, you have your D-pad here, share options and PlayStation button right there. It's pretty self-explanatory, and also the game that I play in the gameplay footage later on, and really the only game I've played with this so far, is Gran Turismo Sport. And Gran Turismo Sport also like remaps stuff so it fits well on the wheel, so that's also a nice thing. Oh, also two other buttons that I forgot. You have shifters on the back here. It's not very easy to see from this angle, but there are two shifters on the back here, which they click and you don't really have to press them super far, so they work pretty well. Oh, also connects to your PS4 or PS3 or PC with just a normal USB cord, so it is wired, which honestly, like I guess some people might want a wireless controller, but this one is wired, and I don't really know why you would necessarily want a wireless racing wheel either, because I feel like you want to make sure you don't have any input lag or anything. So one thing to talk about with this is that the wheel itself, it doesn't really appear on camera to be very small, and it's really not small, but it is noticeably smaller than a real car's wheel, at least compared to the cars that I've driven. But also, despite being smaller, when you're actually using it, you can't really tell. Like, it still feels fine when you're actually using it to race. So it looks smaller, and like you kind of notice it's smaller once you actually open it and everything, but it really doesn't make any noticeable difference when you're really using it, at least not in my opinion. One other thing to make sure if you do buy this is it recognizes itself as like its own controller kind of thing. So usually if you have another controller hooked up to your PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 3, it will recognize this as like a player 2 thing. So make sure, for one, to hit the PlayStation button and like make sure the PlayStation recognizes it, and then reassign this to player 1, assuming you're just playing single player. I actually made that mistake when I first got it for PS4 and got really confused, and then realized I had to hit the PlayStation button, assign it to my, you know, Wulfy account profile on there, and then I was able to use it fine. So that's one thing, make sure to do that. I feel like that's probably the same for every racing wheel. Now, really, I think the biggest complaint that I have about this racing wheel is actually right here on the front, and that is this D-pad. This D-pad is really not good. It doesn't look that bad, it doesn't feel that bad to use, but for some reason, it is extremely challenging to get this thing to go in up, down, left, or right. It always wants to go diagonal. I don't know why. I don't think I got any good gameplay footage of that, but trust me, it does that. It seems like if you press directly right or directly left or direct up, down, it always wants to go diagonal. There's little marks on the end of each, and if you like put your fingernail in there and press, usually it'll go in that direction, but if you just press it like normally, it'll probably go diagonally, which is really annoying. It's not like a deal breaker or anything, and you don't have to use a D-pad all that much on a racing wheel often, so it's not a huge deal, but it definitely gets pretty annoying in menus and stuff. But again, like I said, for that being pretty much the biggest issue with this wheel overall, it's really not that big of an issue at all. I feel like the paddle shifters are probably a good thing to mention. So the paddle shifters are there, and at least Gran Turismo Sport recognized them, and you can use them in manual mode. They feel pretty good. They feel smaller. Well, I've never actually driven a car that has paddle shifters, but they seem smaller than real life paddle shifters, but they are very easy to press with your hand, and like, yeah, they're you don't like, you won't miss them if you're trying to hit them, is what I'm trying to say. And they don't have super far travel, but I don't think you would really want that with paddle shifters, because if you want to shift, you want to do it fast. So yeah, I think honestly that's about all there is to say about the actual wheel itself. It's a little bit smaller than a real car, than a real car's wheel, but you don't really notice when you're using it. Has all the buttons except for, you know, another analog stick, and really the only button that's annoying is the D-pad. So up next, I'll show you guys some gameplay and just generally talk about whether or not I think it's a good deal, and you guys will be able to see some cool camera like setup gameplay where I have the camera where you guys can see me using the wheel and playing the game at the same time. So here's that. And on to the gameplay. So first, before I get too far into this part, I just want to mention this gameplay was recorded at the same time, but using 3 separate cameras. Well, a capture card, a camera, and a cell phone. So if there's any lag, it's because I had to sync all the video up in editing. They weren't all recorded into like one video file at the same time. So when you're actually using the wheel, there's not any lag at all, at least that I've noticed. So just if it does appear laggy, that is solely because of editing. That's not actually how it plays. So I tested this on 2 games. Well, I mainly play Gran Turismo Sport with this because that's just the racing game I play the most, but I also have Gran Turismo 5 because I bought it for like $3 a couple weeks ago, so I figured since it says it works for PS3, might as well also try it out on PS3. On Gran Turismo Sport, it works really well, and it's not super easy to see with the footage not being perfectly synced up and also like the camera angles, but the wheel does center itself really well, so if you like turn it all the way to the right and then let go of it, it will center itself almost perfectly. Gran Turismo Sport has that little thing down at the bottom of the screen there where it shows you like how far the wheel is turned with that dot coming out of the center of the screen, and I tested it before using the game, and if I would turn it and then let go of it at almost any angle that I turn the wheel at, it would go perfectly back to center. And it's almost the same exact thing with the pedals. If you press them a little bit, the little gas and brake level things on the screen go up like incrementally with how hard you're pressing it. And so overall, even though the elastic band system that the wheel has might kind of make it sound not too great, and I was a little bit worried about that, it seems to be very accurate. However, as you guys will see in the Gran Turismo 5 gameplay, whenever that pops up on the screen, I had to turn the wheel strangely far compared to Gran Turismo Sport to actually get it to work correctly, like to get the car to actually make a noticeable turn. I think that might just be Gran Turismo 5 though, because I've played Gran Turismo 5 with a controller, and that game has some kind of strange mechanics when it comes to turning and stuff, at least in my opinion, compared to Gran Turismo Sport and other racing games. I will say I have not played any more arcade style racing games with this wheel, stuff like Need for Speed or anything like that, but given that it performs so well in a simulation style game, I feel like it's pretty safe to say that it will also work pretty well in a more slippy slidey arcade type of game. Also, one other thing, I feel like I've talked about the pedals and the wheel, and I've mentioned the D-pad. The paddle shifters I haven't talked about a ton because whenever I play racing games I tend to play automatic, but in this gameplay I did decide to do one race manual just to show you guys how it worked and everything. And the paddle shifters, like I said, work very well. They're easy to hit, you don't like miss them or anything. Even though they're a little bit small, I think that they do exactly what they need to do, and they're also a very nice thing to have because some racing wheels don't have that, and then you would either have to use a button on the steering wheel or whatever to do that. Like I know, as I said in the like real life part of the video, I have a PS2 racing wheel, which is the only other racing wheel I own, and that didn't have any sort of shifter thing. So the paddle shifters are definitely a nice addition, and they they work very well. So overall, for around $100, which was what this racing wheel cost me after tax pretty much when I bought it, I think this is a pretty good deal. The thing is, you're not really going to be able to find a racing wheel for much cheaper than this because all of them are pretty much around $100. At least that was what it was when I checked on Amazon a little while ago to see about other stuff. And the nice thing about this wheel is that, for one, for around $100, I think it costs like $90 without tax, so it differs depending on your area and how much taxes and everything. But for around $100, you're getting a PlayStation licensed accessory and a wheel from Thrustmaster, which, if you don't know, Thrustmaster is a pretty well-known brand in the world of like game joysticks and wheels and stuff like that. So as compared to spending $100 on a wheel from some brand you might have never heard of, even if it does have some more features, I feel like this is one of those situations where it's a pretty safe bet for a racing wheel. Now, it's obviously not the most like greatest racing wheel experience that you could possibly have, because there are all the racing wheels out there that have the force feedback and all sorts of fancy stuff like that. But for somebody like me who likes racing games and likes to play them with a racing wheel but doesn't really need to have a super fancy racing wheel because I'm not like professional with it or anything like that, I don't get super into it, I think this is really good. And I think it's pretty safe to say that really every racing game is much better when you play it with a wheel, and this is a very good option for that wheel. So overall, even though there's a couple of small problems that I had with it, like the D-pad and stuff, this is a really good wheel, I think, and it's pretty good for the price because it's really one of the lowest priced good quality wheels from a known brand that you're gonna find. So if you're looking for just something to improve your racing game experience and you're not necessarily looking for ultra perfect simulation racing wheel experience stuff, this is really good for you. However, if you're looking for something that is gonna like jolt your arms around while you're driving and stuff and feels like super realistic and everything, it's probably not the best deal for you. But like I said, I think overall very good option. And then one final note, I don't want this video to be like an hour long, so I have all this gameplay here. I'm actually going to upload this gameplay in another video. I will try to remember to put a link to that video in the description if you want to see me do these full races. And I do pretty well in Gran Turismo Sport, so just want to put that out there. Anyway though, thank you guys for watching my video. In the future, I'm thinking about doing some more reviews of just things that I buy that I think people might want to see reviews of because people seem to like to watch these. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see more stuff of this, and like the video and leave comments and stuff. I didn't get to test this out on PC, so that might also be a good thing to put in the comments if you own one of these and you've used it on PC, to put how it plays on PC. But on PS4 it works really well. On PS3 it works really well. Gran Turismo 5 was just acting a little weird with it. Anyway, see you guys in other videos, and bye-bye.